Just one announcement from President Trump. A 10% tariff on Canadian natural gas and energy exports set off a ripple effect across the global energy market. This single move triggered a shift that is now challenging America's long-held dominance in the energy world, and the fallout didn't stop at Canada. Before Washington could react, over 180 countries felt the impact. Qatar quickly rerouted its gas flows straight to Europe. Imagine this. Massive gas pipelines that once funneled energy to Texas and New York are now sending it to Germany, France, and the UK. A new network of energy alliances is forming. With America's closest energy allies pivoting away, the question now is, could Trump be forced to backtrack if this leads to major retaliation from Canada and Qatar? Let's break it all down. And make sure you hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a deep state update. Right after his 2025 inauguration, President Trump slapped a 10% tariff on Canadian oil and gas. That triggered a sudden crisis between two of North America's closest neighbors. According to Reuters, Canada had been supplying nearly half of all U.S. crude imports, roughly 4 million barrels a day. By March 2025, that vital supply came with a 10% cost increase. It was a blow not only to Canada but also to U.S. refiners who were already struggling to secure cheap, reliable oil. Meanwhile, Canada was forced to find new buyers for the oil it once sent south. With 90% of its oil exports previously heading to the U.S., Canada began redirecting its liquefied natural gas, LNG, to Europe. After the Russia-Ukraine energy crisis, European countries were eager to refill their reserves. The International Energy Agency reported that in Q1 2025, European LNG imports rose 23% year-over-year, an increase of over 9 billion cubic meters. Qatar wasn't going to miss out. Known for having the lowest LNG production costs in the world, Doha jumped on the opportunity. Reuters reports that Qatar is expanding its LNG export capacity from 77 million tons annually to 142 million tons by 2030, an 85% increase aimed at serving both Europe and Asia. This isn't just about making money. Qatar is using the U.S. tariff decision to grow its global influence, forcing Washington to rethink its energy strategy and relationships. What began as a local trade policy is now a high-stakes international power play. By mid-2025, the tariff officially kicked in. Few in Washington expected it would redefine the North American energy relationship so quickly. Until then, the U.S. was Canada's primary gas buyer. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, Canada exported about 8.66 billion cubic feet of gas per day via pipeline in 2024, up from 8.0 in 2023, and well above the 5-year average of 7.5 BCFD. The highest recorded figure was 10.4 BCFD in 2002. Suddenly, nearly half of the gas used by U.S. power plants and refineries came with a 10% premium. Canada had no choice but to pivot to Europe and Asia. For many, this tariff looked like retaliation amid escalating trade tensions with China. Canada accelerated the LNG Canada project in Kitimat, British Columbia, its first major LNG export terminal, with a capacity of 14 million tons per year. Initial shipments are expected by mid-2025. This became Canada's direct entry into the global gas market. Massive LNG tankers now leaving Port Kitimat symbolize Canada's shift. And this isn't a one-off. Canada is building out its entire energy infrastructure, from the 670-kilometer coastal GasLink pipeline to upgraded ports and storage facilities. It's all aimed at reducing dependence on the U.S. The $40 billion coastal GasLink can move up to 2 billion cubic feet of gas daily, linking Montney Basin gas fields directly to export terminals. The effect? Immediate. Gasoline prices in the eastern U.S. surged 40 cents per gallon in the first month after the tariff. Refineries and ports struggled. Stellantis, for example, shut down its Windsor, Michigan plant and laid off 900 workers. That figure has now climbed to 4,500. What started as a simple trade action has become a massive economic disruption. While the U.S. scrambles, Canada turned crisis into opportunity, building new partnerships, opening new markets. Meanwhile, Qatar isn't slowing down. From 77 million tons of LNG in 2024, it's targeting 142 million by 2030, an 85% rise in just 6 years. The driving force? The North Field expansion project? Qatar's cornerstone in its goal to lead the LNG market. By the end of the decade, Qatar aims to supply nearly 1/4 of the global LNG market, and it's already locking in key buyers. In October 2023, Qatar Energy and Total Energies signed a 27-year deal to ship 3.5 million tons of LNG annually to France starting in 2026. Just days later, a similar 27-year deal was signed with Shell to supply 2 million tons per year to the Netherlands. These aren't just economic deals, they're strategic. Europe is scrambling to replace Russian gas, and Qatar is stepping up. Demand for LNG is soaring. The IEA says Europe's LNG imports will climb another 25% in 2025, an extra 33 billion cubic meters. That pushes import volumes to record levels. Russia's pipeline exports via Nord Stream and other routes have nearly stopped. With winter coming, storage levels are critical. By the end of winter, European gas reserves were just 34% full. The EU must race to refill them to 90% or risk shortages. But there's one catch: Europe's new environmental rules. The EU's due diligence directive requires LNG suppliers to meet stricter emission standards. By 2027, Qatar is in a powerful position. It can now ask for exemptions, or even threaten to cut supply. Meanwhile, the US is trying to ramp up LNG exports, but is falling behind. At the March 2025 CERAWeek conference, energy leaders warned that without major upgrades, America's export capacity would hit a ceiling. Those two new U.S. LNG terminals, they won't be online until 2026 or 2027. That gives Qatar a clear 2-year head start in Europe's energy market. Not only does Qatar offer the world's lowest LNG production costs, it's also excelling diplomatically. While the U.S. deals with rising domestic prices and growing public frustration, Qatar is securing long-term energy partnerships. When the main Russian gas pipeline through Ukraine was shut down, Russia's share of EU gas dropped from 40% to under 10%. This left the EU scrambling. To avoid another winter shortage, Europe turned to Canada and Qatar. A leaked EU Commission draft showed plans to invest directly in foreign LNG infrastructure, even at higher costs. Now, Canada's LNG Canada project and Qatar's mega deals with Shell and Total Energies are Europe's new lifelines. Liquefied natural gas is no longer just a commodity, it's a strategic tool. Qatar uses environmental exemptions to offer low prices, while Canada leans on G7 ties to secure long-term agreements. According to the IEA, LNG now accounts for over 35% of Europe's gas imports. Back in the US, households are paying more. Domestic gas prices are up nearly 80% year over year. While trying to show strength, the US may have undermined itself. Despite being a major energy power, Americans are grappling with high costs. A single 10% tariff on Canadian gas helped redraw the global energy map. In 2024, the U.S. held a 45% share of LNG exports to Europe. But by early 2025, Brussels was turning to Doha and Ottawa instead. These aren't just trade deals. They mark the beginning of a new energy order where Europe is building an independent supply network. The U.S. quote, "S go-it-alone strategy has backfired." As cheap gas pours into Europe, U.S. natural gas futures spiked 8% to nearly $4 per MMBtu. Now Washington is racing to catch up. The government is fast-tracking upgrades to gas pipelines, storage, and export terminals. Qatar is exploiting every loophole to keep its gas cheap. Canada is leveraging diplomatic relationships to secure 20-year deals. American energy policy now stands at a crossroads. Will Washington double down on protectionism and risk falling further behind? Step 1. Reduce trade barriers with allies. Step 2. Expand LNG infrastructure investments. Step 3. Use revenue for green energy transition. What's your take on it all? Drop your thoughts in the comments and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming dives.